The desert ring. Wait a minute.
All right, light him up. And I thought Colorado trash was sad.
He lacks the perception necessary to see a coup coming.
You here to kiss my ass and ask me to switch sides? Well, you're gonna have to get that tongue in deep, you hear me?
Wasteland 3. Amazing stuff. Curiously, not the first Wasteland game. The original, released all the way back in 1988, made history by essentially inventing post-apocalyptic RPGs on a computer. At least that's what this page says. In the olden times, back when this industry was much smaller, an in-depth conversation about Fallout would often begin with a conversation about Wasteland. But these days, it's the other way around. Everyone knows what Fallout is, it's part of the gaming mainstream. Wasteland, in comparison, is much more niche. So before we talk about the latter, it makes sense to have a brief conversation about the former. Here is the TLDR. Fallout games come in two distinct genres. A classic Fallout is a type of an RPG where the player wanders from place to place, solving ethical problems. Should the Vault citizens and the ghouls of Gecko kiss and make up? Do we attempt to improve the human-mutant relations in Broken Hills? Or do we add fuel to the fire? Should the people of Redding preserve whatever is left of their sovereignty by aligning themselves with the new Reno gangsters? Wander the wastes, find answers to these and other questions, tell your own story. But that's not the only way of designing a Fallout game. Todd Fallouts have been with us for a long time, and strictly speaking, their existence predates Bethesda's ownership of the series. It would be wrong to say that these games don't care about ethical problems, but it's clearly not the focus. Todd Fallouts are about entertaining you with fun adventure, and the way they do it is by throwing a bunch of ideas at the player in quick succession. A town in a crater built around an unexploded nuke, a community inside a husk of an aircraft carrier, a tower of 1%ers about to be overtaken by ghoul immigrants, a democracy of 9 people. None of these ideas are very developed or explored in depth, because that would be unnecessary or even counterproductive. The features and techniques that make a good classic Fallout are different from the features and techniques that make a good Todd Fallout. Sometimes less is more. Imagine if the Republic of Dave was designed like a Fallout 2 location, with an exposition NPC standing right here near the gate, shitting out paragraph upon paragraph of exposition, abusing semicolons. That would absolutely destroy the pacing. Thank you for sparing us, Master Todd. So, which type of Fallout game is better? Which one is more authentic, sophisticated, monocled? There is an ancient war between the clans of nerd. Typically, Fallouts with classic gameplay are seen as more artistic and valuable. Perhaps this is true. But maybe the reason you think so isn't because it's an intrinsically better way of designing a game, but rather simply because the adventure Fallouts you played weren't well made. Maybe it's less about philosophy and more about craftsmanship. This brings us back to the conversation about Wasteland. The original Wasteland is a game where a bunch of Green Beret-looking dudes beat up oversized toys with proton axes. It's an honorary Todd Fallout. Always was. So when Wasteland 2 was released in 2014, it had a warm reception, but many critics were confused. Nobody actually played the 80s Wasteland, and there was this assumption that it's going to be a return to the gameplay formula of classic Fallout, which it was not. The In Exile devs added to the confusion by using marketing word salad loosely associated with millennial RPG culture. Moral dilemmas, consequences of your actions. And in 2020, all of this happened again.
Why am I arguing policy with a bunch of gun jockeys?
Dear friends, I promise you, Wasteland 3 will be much more enjoyable once you understand that it has little to do with classic Fallout, and instead approach it like you would Might and magic game, or a wizardry game, or a Forgotten Realms game. I really should be using something newer for an analogy. Wasteland 3 is an RPG experience where we meet Santa and explore his workshop/meth lab with a mass grave full of dead elves hidden in the backyard. What did the devs mean by this? What does it tell us about the human condition? Hey Santa, what can change the nature of a man? The Desert Rangers are wasteland adventurers. They don't have any other politics. It's up to you to fill that space with whatever your hearts of iron contaminated brain desires.
All good. Come ahead.
We took a lot of casualties during the events of the previous game, so when someone called the Patriarch made us an offer to come work for him in Colorado, we weren't in a position to refuse. Notice how inconsistent the uniforms are. Some rangers look like cops, others like raiders. The expedition gets wiped out. We'll have to rebuild from scratch. Basic character creation tips. Every ranger should have one weapon skill, like assault rifles, and 2 exploration skills, like lockpicking or toaster repair. You generally don't need more than 2 per individual, because soon after the tutorial is done, the party will grow to 6 people. Later in the game, you'll be adding utility skills, a level of first aid, maybe a few points in weird stuff, or in brawling because it increases the character's speed. Combat saw the most improvement over Wasteland 2, which is good, since combat is roughly 50% of what you do in the game. The turns are noticeably faster now, since enemies are capable of acting simultaneously. Another notable change over the previous game is that most weapon skills now grant access to several weapon types. The shotgun and the handgun skills were merged into small arms, rifles and submachine guns into automatic weapons. Every ranger has 2 weapon slots, so a handgun unit will have a shotgun in the other slot they can switch to at no cost. A small change, but it does add nuance. The leadership skill enables spellcasting. There are only 2 spells, but they are powerful. Now, this is a personal preference kind of thing, but in a Wasteland game, or in any other game that takes place in a nonsense setting like, say, Saints Row, I prefer to design my characters to be an oasis of normalcy. So let's make our uniforms look realistic and military-like, and red. Welcome to Colorado.
Howdy, Heartlander. I like it best when the deluge of blood happens up close and personal.
You might be asking questions like, who are these guys? What do they stand for? What is the blood deluge? And the answer is, don't worry about it. Don't feel like reading the exposition dump? Well, that's fine, just click through that shit. You'll absorb all the important stuff through the environment anyway. Take it easy. Don't think too hard. That's the zen of Wasteland.
3. When there were 50.
The Patriarch wanted a bunch of rent-a-cops, but all he got was a pair of homeless crusader larpers.
Well done.
The long-abandoned airbase is the new Ranger HQ. It's coming back to life. The main quest revolves around us tracking down our benefactor's rogue children. Vic, the psychopath, leads a gang. Valor, the traitor, a hacker and a nerd. Liberty, the zealot of a political kind. They are somewhere in the wastes, scheming against the Patriarch. Their father wants them back, alive, he says. This is when we finally get to hire more rangers. You are looking at generic characters, but there are more interesting options as well.
Forgive me for saying so, but I'm guessing you folks are going to need as much help in the field as you will here in HQ.
Marshal Kwan, a cop, joins Team November. He is a companion NPC with unique interactions and voice acting. And in the nearby town of Colorado Springs, the second story companion joins the group.
If it's too dangerous for you, Marshals, maybe I should go in there myself.
Lucia Wesson is a gunfighter type of character, representing the people of, well, not exactly the people. They refer to themselves as the 100 Families, the founders of Colorado Springs and its privileged upper class. They were actually 63 families, but that doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well, does it?
Came here for every class trip we ever had. Is Buchanan a man?
The Patriarch's real name is Saul Buchanan.
My uncle tells me you're a man of questionable morals, Mr. Kwan.
That's why I'm on the payroll.
Party banter. Again, we're breaking new ground. The companions were of little narrative significance in the previous game, and it's good to see this changing. The town is a centrally located hub with tons of quests and traders. Our purpose here is to recruit local specialists to staff the ranger base. We need a doctor, a mechanic, someone to run the armory. Welcome to Farron Brigo's Little Vegas, a tourist trap of Colorado Springs, and a place of much choicing and consequencing. Work with the cops against Brigo, and one of them will end up joining the staff at the ranger base. Work with Brigo and get one of his gangsters instead, as well as a massive reputation penalty for shooting local lawmen. The disco robot is helping. Oh yeah, the aimed shot system. Dealing damage to bad guys charges your precision strike meter. This is individual per ranger. Attacking different body parts applies different status effects. Some enemies have unique weak points. The huge-ass flame tank in this instance. It's a very good system. We are in the upper-class district of Neverwinter. Expensive paving, robotic servants, lack of refugees on the streets. This place feels almost pre-war.
In everyday luge, the righteous was spared by God.
The religion in Colorado is called Delugism. It's an offshoot of Christianity. God will bring salvation after a series of apocalyptic events called deluges. 2 have already happened. This is a good time to take advantage of the upgrade system to prepare the party before venturing forth. The weapons are still tier-based, kind of like in Mass Effect 1, with the next tier being almost always superior to the previous. Almost, but not quite. Sometimes you get side grades, weapons that are very good at dealing with specific threats, or weapons that use exotic ammunition available in limited quantities.
Oh, the one with Carmine made that guy talk with just 2 bottle caps and a twist eye?
We observe the result of our recruitment policy back at the ranger base. The armory now looks like a nightclub and is staffed by Italian gangster stereotypes. It's absolutely perfect in every way. The doc will heal our wounds for free, which is important because healing items cost money.
Ready when you are.
Ranger Jody Bell is the only other survivor of the Battle of the Dam. Welcome to Team November. The reason you shouldn't obsess about making suboptimal early game character building choices is because there is always a respec available here at the base. It does cost money, and the price goes up with every sequential respec, but it's manageable.
Robots are autonomous. Animatronics are just machines.
I don't know what those words mean, but I'd still shoot first and ask questions later.
The Ranger Museum. Wasteland 2 also had this feature. As we go through the campaign, it gets filled with exhibits. The jail is also like this, but for NPCs we choose to arrest instead of execute. Enough of fucking around, let's go explore Colorado. The Kodiak is the Desert Ranger's main vehicle in Wasteland 3, an all-terrain armored personnel carrier with a big-ass gun mounted on the roof. The vehicle is customizable in the garage. Customizations can affect both the aesthetic and functionality.
This is Orestes Dorsey, calling the Rangers.
Pretty much as soon as we step on the world map, the Rangers are hit with an arbitrary binary choice. The Dorseys took a bunch of people hostage in the community to the east. Raiders are attacking a supply caravan to the west. We only have time to save one. I did the Dorseys in my test run, so this time I'm going after the caravan. The Kodiak is incredibly versatile, and it's one of the game's best innovations. The machine is many things. For one, it's a powerful combatant. We can also hide behind it, using it as mobile cover, and we can crush the motherfuckers by driving over them. And if all that isn't enough, it can be equipped with a long-range mortar that shoots debuffs.
How are you feeling, Car?
Unable to process. Please repeat query.
That was Jody the Ranger, party interaction. The game features both random and scripted world map encounters.
Light 'em up. Wow. And I thought Colorado trash was sad.
And you must be Liberty. I suppose these close-ups serve the same function as talking heads from Fallout.
Are you blind? He's letting a crazy cowboy cult control our oil production. Our main trading hub is run by a bunch of idiots in monster masks.
Her ideology is basically that the patriarch is a soy and a pussy, and she would be much better at oppressing people.
Why am I arguing policy with a bunch of gun jockeys?
The writing in the game can be very charitably described as hit and miss, but the dialogue in the close-ups is good. Almost all quotable lines come from these. Liberty is a late-game threat. We'll have to let her go for now.
Ha! Thank you for your permission. Squad, roll out!
And there are non-melodramatic encounters as well.
Fucking Rangers.
This is perhaps not the best example. We sided with the criminals back in Colorado Springs, so Patriarch's cops will refuse to talk to us. Random encounters with merchants are unexpectedly precious, because sometimes you get an opportunity to buy equipment 10 levels higher than what you should have.
Communists are everywhere.
The area to the south of Colorado Springs is called the Bazaar. The natural predators in these parts are mechanized Latino clown raiders. The Bazaar is it's a pre-war mall buried under decades of snow, turned into a trading hub. The place is operated by a gang called the Monster Army. Previously defeated by the Patriarch, they were allowed to maintain a bit of sovereignty. The clowns hate them. One of the ways of getting access to the mall is by going through the adjacent clown dungeon.
A grand carnival will consume all!
The dungeon culminates in a boss fight in a church. Do American malls have churches? Most mega churches are located outside city centers, camouflaged into suburban sprawlscapes. Their architecture often mimics that of warehouses, shopping malls, or dome-shaped stadiums. Interesting.
Whoa! Whoa, stop! Where the fuck did you come from?
Eventually we get past the clowns and into the Bazaar proper. It turns out the Monster Army are not actual monsters. It's a community of well-meaning idiots who don't know how to spell bazaar. Everyone is nice and welcoming.
The Rangers!
Going live on a radio show increases the Rangers' fame in Colorado. There are traders with level-appropriate equipment, there are social activities, and a museum. The third museum we found so far. It's a cool way of showcasing the culture of the community, I guess.
Howdy, Rangers. Sorry about the clowning. Have to keep a low profile.
Angela Death, a veteran desert ranger from Wasteland 1, contacts us to reveal that the Patriarch is possibly a bad person. No shit, NG.
Despite all the dangers, the old desert ranger.
Back in the city, we can observe the consequences of our actions. The caravan we saved was carrying a shipment of power armor, and now all cops in Colorado Springs have some of the best armor in the game. Angela said Buchanan hides something in the vault beneath the Rich People District. That's the same vault where the members of the 100 families survived the war. Stuffed with hired guns, this place is and this is the terminology the game uses, a Patriarch's black site where he keeps important prisoners.
You'd better be here to rescue me.
Sure thing, Ironclad. I love the name. Wish I was called Ironclad. At a critical narrative moment, the 90s Fallout would punctuate the experience with an animation of detailed ultra-violence. Wasteland 3 does this by singing you a song.
Truth is marching on.
If you hear singing, it means something is about to change for someone. Ironclad is a deposed leader of one of the local raider entities, and a potential companion. He has a unique warlord trait and a shotgun for an arm. Quan the cop has neither of those things, so he's out and Ironclad is in.
Oh shit! It's the Desert Rangers!
Fame check, success. Having Ironclad in your party unlocks a special Raider ending. Upgrading the Kodiak chassis makes the vehicle go faster and allows it to traverse radioactive areas, unlocking more of the map for exploration. As you expect, there are little side areas to discover, smallish dungeons to clear. This type of RPG does its magic by maintaining a fast pace and bombarding you with ideas. Bam! It's Satoshi the Bitcoin Man. Bam! A mad scientist creates a clone companion. A bunch of weirdos around what looks like a Tesla coil. A lair of a fugitive synth. A boss fight versus a giant mecha scorpion. The Battle for Steeltown DLC is a more substantial side adventure. The factory complex manufactures all the cool tech we've seen in Colorado.
Everybody in the factory is fine, guys. Totally fine.
There is a crisis, naturally. The expansion is level scaled. My rangers were around level 15, but you can delay this until late game if you want. Most skill checks were in the 7-9 range. There are more named characters per square meter than in the base game, but other than that, the expansion fits seamlessly. These guys are the Ghost Gang. Steeltown has a lot of social groups that absolutely hate each other. The factory is staffed by both humans and robots, around 50-50.
It's big in here.
The admin level. This is where most of the traders are.
What is Ludlow doing down there?
Abigail Markham is the administrator in charge of the archaeology. She has a problem. The factory isn't currently making anything. The workers are on strike. She informs us that the labor in Steeltown is organized by something called Computation Engine. We get a non-party follower, D, the administrator's assistant robot. She will be helping us in combat and providing commentary about various places we visit. In order to take care of the striking workers, the Rangers were issued non-lethal weapons. They function by placing stackable debuffs. Get 10 stacks on a target and it falls unconscious.
Who the fuck are you assholes?
It's not necessary to go non-lethal, but doing so will have consequences for the narrative of the DLC. Another gimmick of Steeltown are bosses with telegraphed attacks. The restrictions make the battles against rioting workers fairly challenging, but the difficulty just collapses after this. We make our way deeper into the factory and are faced with a moral choice. Do we support the rioting workers or the factory cops?
We have power when we stand side by side.
The reason the combat gets easy is because most cops are robots, so you don't have to go non-lethal on them. But the robots themselves still use non-lethal weapons. It's really hard to die here.
So the workers are back to work?
Administrator Abigail says that she's definitely getting into all that workers' rights stuff, but in the meantime she has another job for us. Computation Engine is malfunctioning. The Rangers are to find the hidden lair of the Ghost Gang and make contact with a person called Blue, a former friend of Abigail's who is in possession of a tech gizmo that can solve our computer problems.
That's what I'm here for. Hop on.
He has a talking toilet that we can take a dump in for a temporary buff.
Stay on your guard, stay safe.
The Ghost Gang hideout is a combat arena that turns into a social space with a speech check. There is even a little side questlet here for us to do.
You brought those refugees at the bazaar safely to Colorado Springs. You helped out the folks in the camp here outside Steeltown.
Blue carefully inspects our reputation sheet and then reveals the terrible secret behind Steeltown.
Rangers, it's you.
Computation Engine is actually just a bunch of synths chained together. Do we free them? Do we kill them? Do we keep them enslaved? Something to ponder while we effortlessly slaughter robots armed with pathetic stun weapons.
Let us assist you, Rangers.
The synths remotely hack some of the enemies, converting them to our side, making already a trivial battle even easier. It's near impossible to lose. Is it supposed to be like that? I wonder if I accidentally broke something.
You guys on a break too?
The disgraced robot slaver, Abigail Markham, is banished. Blue and the workers assume control. Computation Engine wasn't actually necessary for Steeltown operations. It was merely a tool for organizing labor. The archaeology is now patrolled by workers instead of robots. Everything ended up very chaotic good. Battle of Steeltown takes about 2 evenings to finish. The rewards are great. XP, weapons, cash, scrap. You will be spending that on special craftables. The ideas of Steeltown are fine, but the heart of the Wasteland experience is combat, and despite the fun new enemy designs, the battles are too easy to be engaging. There is a post-credits scene of sorts. Shortly after the main quest of the DLC is concluded, we receive a phone call.
I don't think we're gonna survive without your help.
Bad people are attacking Steeltown. The Rangers hurry back to partake in the final battle.
Rangers? They cut through all the red tape.
You came to our aid in our hour of need.
Ghost Gang forever!
The characters we helped are here, assisting us against the combined effort of the gangs.
Land where my
count inside that freedom ring.
A very nice closure for all the little arcs of the expansion. An enigmatic radio broadcast leads the Rangers to a grand old building called Union Station.
Who the fuck are you?
Fishlips has a lot of social capital in the Denver cannibal community. Once we defeat him in combat, which is not very hard, he becomes a possible companion.
Howdy, Rangers.
Scotchmo is another companion, a returning character actually, but there ain't much to him. And that's the enigma at the heart of the Union Station.
Greetings, Rangers. I am Morningstar.
Morningstar is an officer in the Secret Service and a car. He was designed to be President Reagan's personal chauffeur and bodyguard, but he never actually got to meet Reagan. The vehicle wasn't finished before the deluge of fire ended the world.
Deifying him goes against every precept of his deeply held Christian beliefs.
With his purpose unfulfilled, Morningstar is depressed and wants us to end his existence. Team November is presented with a choice: kill Morningstar and get his powerful weapon to install on the Kodiak, or convince him that there is no reason to die. It's just his programming that needs changing.
This vehicle was not built by the finest engineers in the land.
So Morningstar joins our party in a way. OMG, a Proton Axe, an iconic Wasteland 1 and New Vegas weapon, here in Wasteland 3. Anyway, time to go to Denver and recover one of Patriarch's rogue children.
Justice is swift in God President Reagan's America.
The Grippers are a cult that worships the former US President Ronald Reagan as their god. All women in the community are named Nancy, after Reagan's IRL wife. Morningstar is very impressed with the statue.
Ronnie, are you ready to begin the trial?
Yes, Nancy. Present the accused.
One of the accused is a murderer, the other a machine from the nearby community of communist robots.
Communist? Communist?
Before the events of 2016, insane Reagan-worshipping boomers were something of an online lolcow in certain circles. This ancient thread has 600 pages and it's still being updated. And this thread about emails from Crazy Grandma has 2,700 pages and counting. The original poster died in Benghazi in 2012. Anyway, the Grippers are important because they control the oil production in Colorado.
The last best hope of man on Earth, or we'll sentence them to...
Something is wrong with the Reagan AI.
Those are the Desert Rangers!
Calm down, Valor. Now is not the time for fear. Nancy wants us to go to the robot commune and retrieve the device that would allow the Grippers to transfer the AI into a physical body.
Welcome to our commune, Desert Rangers. We've heard so many stories about you and your famously violent exploits.
The robots are hippies. Despite being victimized by the Reagan statue, they really just want to live in peace. We can use the hacking skill on this dude, and it's another example of an instance when passing a skill check in a conversation has negative consequences.
Whoa, not cool.
Turns out the radio DJ that sometimes plays music while we are traveling on the world map is a space shuttle.
Come on over.
The paintings were created by an AI artist. Look, this wasn't a controversial topic when the game was made, okay? I clicked through boring dialogue to skip it and accidentally have sex with a robot.
It was just as good as I thought it'd be.
I will never be able to unsee that.
At the top of the tower is the machine intelligence in charge. Actually, I'm not sure how the governance works here exactly. It goes through a list of instances when we helped or mistreated individuals of machinic background.
We are evaluating.
Did we try to hack the greeter robot? Did we argue with the robot artist that their AI art is fake? That's not a good look, but it likes that we fucked a robot, or were fucked by a robot. From the point of view of machine intelligence, that makes us trustworthy. So it reveals the Gripper's true plan. The process of uploading Reagan's consciousness into a living host will erase its original identity, effectively killing a person. The host is Valor Buchanan, Patriarch's kid. The Grand Nancy isn't even hiding it. We can allow the process to continue, or interrupt it, uploading Reagan to the robot communists instead, effectively stealing him from the Grippers and saving Valor's life.
What have you done? Where is my Ronnie?
Our benefactor wants the kid alive, but we received no such instructions on the Grippers. Did you know that Reagan existed IRL? Sounds made up, but it's true. An example of the real anti-communist action of his would be the 1983 US invasion of Grenada, an island nation in the Caribbean. The invasion was prompted by the island's communist government arresting and executing their leader, Maurice Bishop, who himself was a communist revolutionary who seized power in a coup d'etat just a few years prior, deposing the Prime Minister of Grenada, a man by the name Eric Gary, who looked like IRL Pepe the Frog. At the time, Gary was without a doubt one of the most red-pilled individuals on the planet, known for incorporating elements of ufology, alchemy, and sorcery into his political system. This led to the New York Times coining the term Warlockracy.
He is unhappy with his current circumstances.
The machine intelligence says Reagan doesn't like it here. We sent him to a digital gulag. I cry every day.
These rivals tried to stop us. We captured Valor like we said we would, and brought him home to Daddy, who made it pretty clear just where he stood.
The Patriarch has a Son of Ice and Fire-esque throne, but it's missiles instead of swords. Let's go to Aspen and get the other son, Vic. Victory, the psychopath. Saul Buchanan had to set up a special fund to pay off the families of his victims. The Aspen map has two paths, both of which lead to the bad guy HQ. One has tons of enemies, the other 0 enemies, but a lot of booby traps. Naturally, you don't want to lose on items and XP, so you'll be clearing one and then backtracking and doing the other.
Shouldn't be coming after me, strangers! My father's the real monster. At least I'm wrong in the obvious places.
Since we completed the Steel Town DLC early in the adventure, Team November is over-leveled. The encounters seem to be well designed, and I wish I could, experience them. This is how far Ironclad can move with maxed out brawling and almost maxed out speed, and he still has action points for several attacks.
I know it was hard to get here, and no offense, but you can fuck right off back to Colorado Springs and tell Daddy you failed. I like it here.
That's Vic. The situation can be handled in a number of ways. The orders are to bring him in alive, but I have a feeling the Patriarch won't be too upset if something happens to Vic.
That's so! Clear it so, buddy. I think these Rangers are up for a game of catch. Clarence, you idiot! It's a frag grenade, not a flashbang.
But that's not the outcome I prefer. There are much funnier ways of resolving this, and it starts with a high-level speech check.
Everyone's fucking terrified of me, and that means they'll be terrified of you.
Vic wants to join our group. Makes perfect sense to me. Welcome to the Desert Rangers. We don't actually have to make him a member of the party. At this stage, I'm too used to my existing Rangers. He'll be chilling back at the base in the mess hall, socializing. This place is kind of like the Ebon Hawk. The story companions stand here and bark at each other. In any case, Vic has been dealt with.
Dealt with? How?
You're gonna love it, Chief.
But when we got to know him, we found old Vic kinda made us laugh. So we pinned him with a star and let him ride beside us on the path.
Buchanan joins the Rangers. Citizens ask, what are they thinking?
Real-ass politics hours. Team November is heading out to meet veteran Ranger Angela Death and figure out our designs for Colorado.
Hey now, cowboys. Face to face at last. And just as handsome as I thought you'd be.
I was expecting the game to give us a non-choice between the authoritarian Patriarch and the moron cannibal raiders. But NG's vision turned out to be unexpectedly sensible. Kill Liberty, install Ironclad as the leader of the gangs, have him lead his army to Kansas. The raiders will be too busy fighting each other to pose a threat. The Patriarch has to go.
And second,
Shit!
That would be Liberty's gang, the Scar Collectors, here to remind us that they exist. Lucia is upset by all this. She doesn't understand how Colorado can function without Buchanan and the 100 families. Jody Bell reminds us that the purpose of the Colorado expedition is to guarantee supplies for our people in Arizona. As an empath, I feel the vibes rapidly deteriorating. So why don't you give me all your equipment for safekeeping? You too, Lucy.
Hey, what have you guys been doing?
Hey Vic, welcome aboard. You'll be the new Jody. Pizepi Joran, a mutant, a ranger, and a scientist, will take Lucia's spot. Now we go after Liberty, who is hiding at the edge of the world map in Yuma County, behind a wall of radiation.
Cordite? With the Desert Rangers?
The racetrack is a social area where the members of all the gangs hang out. The clowns, the cannibals, remnants of the Dorseys, and the Scar Collectors.
Yes. Time for some payback.
Kill the leader of the Raiders in combat and take over the gang. That's Ironclad's plan. The Ironclad Doctrine.
You here to kiss my ass and ask me to switch sides? Well, you're gonna have to get that tongue in deep, you hear me?
We spend the rest of the chapter doing quests, trying to weaken the Raiders or to get them on our side. There is a trader in the slave market who sells power armor pieces. You need to have a strength of 10 to wear it without penalties, so it's a suit for melee characters. The Scar Collector's gimmick is that they replace their body parts with metal bits that seem to be recovered from the wreck of a space station that occupies much of the adjacent area. This is late game, and we no longer have an advantage in levels, meaning combat is fun again. The space station is of Soviet origin. Good thing Morningstar ain't here to see this.
Okay, Lashenko. Today only we speak American, yes? Hello to you, friend. I would like hot dog, if you please.
It's fun to pretend. The robots in the last room have Cyrillic names and Russian voice acting. They say things like, "Glory to October," and "We want change." Charming boomer humor. Time to return Ironclad to his rightful place.
Whoever wins this rumble is the new king of the jungle.
I wish the cutscene was skippable, or at least the actor would talk faster.
Another trial bested.
Now we should be important enough to be allowed to see Liberty. A point of no return. After the door opens, the Rangers are locked into doing the main quest or the DLC content. No more side missions.
My father isn't crazy. He's just a coward.
If you think you're gonna do anything but cry like a bitch when Daddy gives you your spanking...
Vic Buchanan has a lot of dialogue interjections. I wish he was available earlier. It's possible to side with Liberty, but she doesn't have much of an ideology except more power for Liberty and screw you. A high-level hacking skill check switches the robots to our side, making this very hard battle a little more manageable.
All right! Hold your fire, damn it! You've won. You want to take me to my father? I'll go quietly.
Sorry, but no. We have no reason to please Saul Buchanan anymore, and as a self-made warlord, you are too dangerous to be kept alive.
So she died with guns a-blazing, like a hero on a Sunday Silver Screen.
Now for the father.
Well, that's it. The gangs will follow Ironclad Cordite, and he will follow us. There is one more thing we need to take care of before going after the Patriarch. Cult of the Holy Detonation is the second and final DLC for Wasteland 3. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex was the seat of NORAD, and in the Wasteland verse, it's kind of like the Big MT from Fallout, a place to acquire technologically advanced late-game gear. At least that's what we are here for. At the heart of the mountain, there is the Holy Detonation, a pre-war experiment, a nuclear explosion held in stasis. The detonation is the source of energy. It can power the entirety of Colorado for centuries. It is also a deity, worshipped by a local cult that recently had a schism.
Blasphemy! The sacred glow belongs to the nucleists alone!
It's two opposing entities now, the Primordialists and the Nucleists. And not unlike everything else in this game, their conflict and beliefs are very silly. It's like this: the static explosion emits dangerous amounts of radiation. Of course, in this setting, radiation is magical and gives you sorcerer's superpowers. The Primordialists are focused on the mutation aspect.
Fuck! kill this thing.
We will, but not now. Proteus is an amalgamation of multiple primordialists and a fully sentient being. Most of our time in Cheyenne will be spent working with these guys. Their enemies, the Nucleists, focus on radiation-based powers. A radiation angel is it's like their version of Proteus. A human with an ability to store and release rads, and also on high heels. The main quest in the DLC revolves around the Rangers' efforts to capture an angel and use it to gain access to the core of the facility.
Yeah, and they should call them the heroes of the bazaar for saving it from the payasos.
And they should call them the defenders of the common people for helping the workers in Steeltown.
Yeah, they should.
They really should, but you one robot. Robot.
Keep talking and I'll install Vic as the Patriarch 2. The DLC has a low rating on GOG. This has to do with its main feature, objective-based combat scenarios. The combat in Cheyenne is better than in the base game, but it's also very different, and that can be frustrating to some individuals. Understandably so. At this stage, you've been playing Wasteland 3 for 35-40 hours plus, and it is a little annoying that the game expects you to relearn so much of what you know about combat. But don't get spooked by the ratings. The battles are fun and the DLC is good. In this scenario, we have to move our squad and the vehicle through a series of rooms until we reach the end of the dungeon, where there is a switch that turns off respawning enemies. Using the Kodiak to crush the bad guys is key here. Once you start making progress, the game plays a ballad for encouragement. But every scenario is different. The next battle is about pulling switches that make these giant cannons show up, and then you have to destroy them before they charge, all while trying to control the number of infinitely spawning nucleists.
Hey, we want to free Colorado from dictatorship and oppression. Let's free a slaver. He'll be a great ally. And they even helped him regain control of his former gang.
Like trying to make a shit sandwich better by adding more shit.
I see no contradiction here. What is a perfect form of a shit sandwich? The next big challenge begins with a stealth segment. It might be possible to avoid fighting altogether, but I didn't even bother trying. What you do is that you recover a skin flute from a locker here, and then use the flute to play a song to a tumor that's blocking the way to the main generator. These are sometimes found obstructing optional areas, but we have no way of removing them until now.
Declamations regalia.
The angels talk in a mix of Latin and English, and if we get sufficiently enlightened by radiation, we can imitate the speech, making some of the battles optional.
Holy shit, better ease off on your rad intake, cupcakes. You're, speedily leaking in tongues.
Time to put an end to the nucleist menace. When we kill the bad guys standing on one of these platforms, the feedback damages Angel Iridium. Eventually she dies.
Liberation. Deuterium.
The leader of the cult is in disbelief. It breaks his heart. Today is the day the Holy Detonation is freed from its shackles. Its glory will be spread unrestrained, killing or mutating all life in Denver, Colorado Springs, and if we're lucky, we might even reach Kansas, he says. Proteus absorbs the cultists, turning into an even larger creature. It's the final boss fight.
Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us in a rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true.
In order to kill the dollar store Richard Gray, we have to lure it to these coolant tubes on the edges of the arena, and then blow them up. On turn 2, the creature starts shitting out smaller mutants that are basically walking bombs. This is the final battle of the expansion, and it's quite hard.
Make all our dreams come true.
The choices in the end. We can unshackle the explosion, blow up Colorado, and end the game. That doesn't sound like it would be in our best interest. Alternatively, we can adjust the time dilation field to proceed 1 nanosecond faster. This will create a lot of cheap energy for Colorado Springs. And then there is the sensible option. Reverse the time dilation field to a moment before the detonation, making it disappear. The great detonation never happened. This is what we'll end up choosing, of course.
You assholes!
I don't trust these people with dangerous technology that can blow up a state if misused. Alright, so -1 old god, -2 cults, minus about a dozen friendly NPCs. Our job here is done, Rangers. Let's go kill the Patriarch and end the game.
In the end, it became clear that Buchanan was no better than his kid. If we let him stay in power, Colorado would be heading for the skid.
We got ourselves a situation.
The Ranger HQ is in a state of rebellion. The story companions voice their opinion on the political mess we're about to get ourselves into. With the exception of Ranger Jody, everyone is on board.
Man, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this.
Quan the cop is neutral. Remember Quan? The Turncoat Rangers use the same skills and weapons as we do. The number of traitors supposedly depends on the Ranger loyalty variable that I didn't know was a thing until now. The Italians from Little Vegas sided with us, while the guy who provides the essential respec service turned out to be Buchanan's bitch. You think you know someone.
If you stand with the Patriarch, then you are against the people.
Colorado Springs is in turmoil as well. Refugees battle the power armor-equipped cops. Oops.
There you are, you Reavers. What have you done?
Saul is joyriding in a huge double-barreled tank called Manifest Destiny, which looks like a Red Alert unit. That is, of course, a compliment. The vehicle has 2 attack modes, and the machine guns seem to be more dangerous, if less visually impressive. Vic Buchanan lands the final blow.
Tough sons of bitches.
Not a multi-stage fight, surprisingly. He did show off his hammer earlier. I thought it was foreshadowing.
Too bad you're not smart enough to see that you're dooming Colorado.
So, what happens now? Now we are at the mercy of the game's writers. The next logical step would be the transformation of Colorado from a dictatorship to an oligarchic republic, where the power is held by the members of the 100 families. That is, assuming the nonsense universe of Wasteland works at least a little bit like our own. I like this ending because of how safe and relatively stable it is. The exchange of power from Buchanan to the families would have happened in a few years anyway. The man is old, sick, and he never bothered to set up a proper chain of succession. The nobility of Colorado Springs is educated, they have experience governing, they even have a history of pro-democratic protest. The guys with deer horns, they used to be one of the 100 families, exiled for wanting Saul to share power. This is not a fair system, but it's certainly more fair than whatever the fuck the Patriarch was doing. We'll be incrementally moving in the right direction. This is the best ending for completely cynical reasons. It gets whoever will end up having power in Colorado indebted to us.
Well, that's that.
Angela says we need to make the final arrangements. Do we stay in Colorado? Do we go back to Arizona? What would be the ultimate fate of the Patriarch? To answer these questions, no, yes, exile. Maybe Saul will learn something and perhaps eventually he'll be allowed to come back. This is what happened to the wizard from Grenada, the island that got Reaganed. Eric Gary lived in the US in exile. He wanted to come back, plotted a coup, crazy story, didn't work out. He returned home after the invasion, took part in elections, but nobody voted for him.
If we saved him or betrayed him, if we did the job we went for or we failed.
The final surprise is that Wasteland 3 has the best ending screens I've ever seen. It's a recap of all our adventures in a form of a ballad, with the lyrics reflecting the choices we made.
Then we looted Colorado, rode back to our Arizona home.
What an excellent game. And after all that, there are conventional ending slides explaining what happened to Lucia, to Marshal Kwon and the others. Christ, who cares? These arcs are already closed. You don't need to close them again. Alright, the final thoughts and observations. But first, these videos are generously bankrolled by the crowdfunding webzone Patreon. Special thanks to the members of the Vic Buchanan Restoration Committee, Jim Lawrence, a 2-room apartment in Bobruisk, Belarus, Combat Lobster, Jackson Phillips, Buck Swope, Dima Urban, Ray Ners, Snafu, 1967 Ford Mustang, Azazel and Baneful the Doggo, Danny Kilpatrick, Nathan Kabiska, Mario Perez, Ganso Bomb and Motherfucker, C6, Changolian, Sky Spy 7, Dawn, Source is the best engine ever made, Yuri Solodovnichenko, and Ilya Rubin. Wasteland 3 and the DLCs were provided by my friend Commissar Azura. If you're gonna be getting the game, I also recommend buying the DLCs, but I would delay doing Steeltown until you're finished with Valor and Vic. Anyway, let's talk about what worked. For the first time in the history of the series, tactical combat is not only a back-of-the-box feature, but it actually exists. You love to see it. Furthermore, playing a ballad during a critical combat sequence is a brilliant idea. By the way, who was the person who first brought songs to RPGs? The name, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite... Singing works better in a turn-based game, since the battles take longer, giving a song enough time to do its thing. Having developer-designed companion characters play a much bigger role in the story is a welcome change. Now let's talk about the stuff that needs to be fixed. Like the world map, that is fine mechanically, but very boring to look at. It's just a bunch of corridors. Some biomes have a color correction filter applied, and frankly it looks like something I made. And about the writing, please hire an editor. Wasteland 3 is one of those cases where the writing can be drastically improved by removing half of it. And that might sound like a catastrophic flaw in the technique. Well, I have nothing to say to that, so I'll deflect with whataboutism. What about the Infinity Engine games? Having half of the text be filler is standard in those. Didn't prevent them from becoming classics. Baldur's Gate, so good. But it is strange that the writing is so unrefined in a game that's fully voice-acted. The text bloat adds a huge amount of unnecessary work for the VAs, and that's a lot of extra expenses. Please, hire a professional. You'll end up saving money. Since Wasteland is an honorary Fallout game, made almost a decade before Fallout 1, this has an interesting implication that the Todd-style Fallouts are actually the more traditional ones. Master Todd is always a few steps ahead of his critics, effortlessly beating them at their own game, that he doesn't even know how to play. Verisimilitude? See a doctor if you have that. Imagine if we had, like, Ben Garrison cartoons, but about weird RPG nerd dramas. In any case, next month, we, too, will be doing some returning to comfy first-person vids about a criminal Nord, or a Nord criminal.
Everyone's fucking terrified of me, and that means they'll be terrified of you.
Hey, you guys on a break too?
Obliteration. Deuterium.